Hello, I'm Rita Cabanyero. This is Market Watch, Expert Analysis. Very well, we appreciate, understand that we are acquiring infrastructure, we're acquiring sustainable living and development because of the oil project that is happening in our country. Come 2024-2025, we are expecting a very fast drop of oil around here. But not forgetting we have to be careful with our environment. Therefore, this discussion is going to look at how we can protect, conserve our environment amidst the oil activities ongoing. Joining me now to discuss this is Charles Mwesige, who is acting environmental specialist at UNOC, to highlight for us how UNOC is prepared for this particular war. Thank you so much for joining us. We're so excited to hear from you what you've got to say around there. If we could start it with how UNOC is preparing its full environmental and social legal obligations during the execution of all this project that is ongoing. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me. And the country's environmental legislation provides for anticipating impacts that projects could have on the environment, and as such we are required to undertake environmental and social impact assessments for all projects that we are undertaking. These impact assessments target specific projects. For instance, in the Kabale Industrial Park, we shall be having several projects in there, and every project will be expected to conduct a standalone environment and social impact assessment. Now, the importance of the impact assessment is to appreciate the baseline conditions of an area, so that in future you could weigh them against what has changed in the environment to appreciate whether the changes in the environment are occasioned by our developments or other external factors. So it's very critical that we first appreciate the baseline conditions before we establish any project in a given area. That way you make proper predictions on what has changed and what has caused the change. Okay,
are there any specific projects UNOC is targeting in this whole pipeline, in this whole oil projection?
Yes, there are quite many, but looking at the Kabale Industrial Park, we have the refinery that's going to be established there. The refinery needs crude oil from the different development areas. That's the Kingfish and the Tilenga project development areas. So this crude will come in by way of feeder pipelines, two of them, one from Kingfisher and another one from Tilenga. Remember, the refinery is going to refine the crude oil into different products, and they will need to come closer to the market in Kampala. So we are going to use a multi products pipeline from Hoima to Mpigi, Namwabula, to receive the final product so that they are sold onto the market. We shall also need water from a reliable water source to supply water requirements within the KIP and the refinery in particular.
Okay, thank you so much. I do understand, or you will clarify for us if you have already acquired land for this particular projection you're telling us.
Yes.
And from there, you tell us how, moving further, how you're looking forward for potential social community association with that.
Yes. For the Kabale Industrial Park, we've already acquired over 29 square kilometers of land, and this will be hosting a lot of developments within, so that land has already been acquired. The feeder pipelines that will be feeding crude into the refinery, land has also been acquired. Right now we are acquiring land for purposes of constructing a water pipeline, a corridor to address the water requirements within the KIP.
Okay.
Yes.
And if you could share with us how you will be ensuring compliance around the communities.
So for resettlement action plans that are prepared, one of the primary objectives is to appreciate how people's property that is sitting on land and the land itself is going to be impacted. So this is a process of land acquisition. So once you identify the people who are affected by the project, you value their property, you value their land, you value any houses or gardens or farms that sit on them, and you compensate them either in cash or in kind compensation. Okay. So we have already established which people are going to be impacted, and we are in the process of valuing their properties, and subsequently we shall compensate them. It's important to note that you cannot establish any project until every project affected person
is compensated.
Okay. Yes, please.
And you're 100% at that as UNOC?
No, the process has just, for the Kabale Industrial Park, land was already acquired and everyone was compensated and they vacated the park.
Okay.
However, for the pipeline water corridor, the process is still ongoing.
Okay, thank you so much. Now, after compensating the land, we very well know that thereafter takes on activities, takes on illustrations. And now the concern comes the approach of land restoration after all these activities are taking place, the operational areas. What is UNOC's plan?
Okay. UNOC's approach to restoration of areas that we've utilized for our installations is more to do with progressive restoration. A lot of construction will be happening and you need a lot of raw materials. These are usually sourced from different areas that could include marram, it could include stone aggregate, could include sand and all others. Now we appreciate that once construction is completed, most of those areas are no longer needed for further development. So instead of waiting for the project life to come to an end, we will encourage a progressive restoration in areas where we've acquired these resources, raw materials, so that we don't leave them open. Then at the end of the project, we'll update the restoration plan to take into consideration the changes that have happened during project implementation, and eventually we shall undertake full restoration of infrastructure that will no longer make business sense to UNOC.
Okay. Is there any specific technology or innovations that you're targeting to be used in this particular processes?
Yes. What we are looking at is to minimize as much land as possible, land tech, where the projects are going to be sitting. So that involves technology in terms of the kind of technology you're using to produce different products within our operations, and to quicken restoration of areas whose vegetation has been lost. The plan is to put aside topsoil that can be brought later, because you excavate up to the level of marram, and marram usually does not support plant growth. So it's important that that topsoil is kept aside, and once you're done with the installations and they are cleared, access roads and all that, then you can bring back the topsoil, cover it, and you could also utilize aspects of maybe seeding, hydro seeding, where you mix seeds with water and spread them in the targeted area that you want to regenerate. Okay. But those details at the moment are too early to determine, because we are still in the inception stages of the project.
Okay.
Yes.
We'll surely walk the journey with you. But what are the plans in place to manage wastes associated with oil and gas projects?
Yes. As an industry, we categorize all waste as hazardous waste in the oil and gas industry, especially that which comes from drilling, then the waste that is generated from processes. But it's important to note that the legislation in the country regarding waste management is in such a way that the person or the entity that picks up the waste from our facilities transports it to another entity that processes that waste up to levels where it can no longer be a threat to the environment.
Okay.
So our role is to basically hand over this waste to licensed waste handlers who transport it to final destination for treatment and final disposal.
Okay.
And maybe the most interesting aspect that the viewers may wish to know is that the refinery's waste actually is useful waste.
Okay.
Because then it's going to be used it's going to be used to as a source of raw materials for other petrochemical industries within the KIP.
Okay.
We use plastics a lot here. We use nylon in our clothing. We use artificial fertilizers. We also use asphalt in construction of roads. All that
is regenerated
from the waste that comes from the refinery. So the waste coming from the refinery is going to spur industrial development in the areas that I have mentioned. And in order to balance our imports and exports, you realize that most of the things are actually being imported into the country, and they arrive here after they have been taxed and shipped, and the final prices are usually high.
So can we have hope that UNOC is going to handle that and create products for us?
Yes, what UNOC basically is UNOC is providing a platform where investors can come and establish those factories that take on that waste and transform it into final products.
Okay.
So it's a free market economy, and once the products are ready, they are put on the market for everyone to access. But our hope and aspiration is that because they're not being imported, we don't expect the bills to be as high as products that we get out of the country.
Okay, so you talked about you onboarding already licensed, overtakers to take on the garbage and the waste handling. Do you already have that on board?
Yes, their
or
service.
Actually someone is watching you, maybe is having a company is licensed to do that. Is that an opportunity?
Yes, we have Luero Industries that is being managed under NEC, National Enterprise Corporation. They have been licensed to manage petroleum waste. We also have EnviroServe,
okay.
that has been managing both Luero Industries and EnviroServe have been managing waste during the exploration campaign for Tilenga and Kingfisher. So these companies have been tested, and we believe there are more that will come on board as the amount of waste increases and needs. Developers have a diverse list to choose from who their waste handler should be. But it's important that all waste management companies are licensed by NEMA.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you so much. We're still discussing about managing and conserving our environment amidst oil activities that are ongoing. With me is Charles Mwesige, who is the assistant environmental specialist at the Uganda National Oil Company, UNOC. And as we're closing our discussion, yes, this, like I said earlier, has brought in a lot of industrialization, a lot of jobs are being created. But as UNOC, how do you plan to address the climate change related concern associated with all these projections, all these projects? Do you have a plan?
Yes. It's no hidden fact that the oil and gas industry is one of the contributors to
climate change
through emission of through carbon emissions, and definitely there are plans in place. As UNOC, we are currently developing an environmental, social and governance strategy to enable us identify, quantify and manage any emissions, partly any emissions that are likely to accrue from our operations. And we have elaborate carbon management plans that are coming up to ensure that we identify the sources of this waste and how we are going to handle them so that we don't let them freely in the environment to contribute to climate change adversely.
Okay.
But also for our viewers, it's important to appreciate the fact that the developing countries, especially Africa, where we sit here in the tropics, is blessed to have nature-based carbon sinks. The forests we see around, the water bodies, all contribute to taking in what has already gone in the, exactly. So what we are planning to do is to plant more trees on a commercial basis around our installations, but also off-site, because at the end of the day, when emissions are released in the air, they travel very fast to different parts of the country. So even if you put a forest away from KIP, it will still contribute to the same. We have plans to partner with National Forest Authority to replant areas that have been degraded, the national forests. And you know they are fairly distributed all over the country. So by partnering with NFA to replant the degraded areas means that we are increasing the ability of these natural carbon sinks to perform their function of reducing carbon emissions. Then one of the products that we anticipate from the production is actually gas. So this will be transformed into liquid petroleum gas so that it can be used by especially domestic
use, cooking.
Cooking, because at the moment we are relying so much on firewood and charcoal, and these are also becoming scarce and very expensive.
Very interesting.
Yes.
Sorry to interject there, but also Shane Elate as an environmental specialist here, because we have so many upcoming projects. We have anticipating the Karamoja sub-region for oil as well, but for someone out there to understand what impact can we really have if we do not restore, if we do not manage, if we do not conserve our environment, what can happen? As a specialist, give us those examples. Yes, please, so that people can relate with.
Yes, we've had an opportunity that the development of our industry is borrowing experiences and lessons from other countries that have already been in the industry. We have benchmarked against those countries to see things that did not go well. Oil in its nature is viscous, it can move.
Yes.
So for instance, if it came into contact with water, it would pollute water.
Exactly.
And as we all know, the adage, water is life. So people rely on water for their very survival, both in agriculture and also the most domestic use. And the resources and time that takes to clean up water resources that have been contaminated are enormous. They can even run a given company bankrupt.
Okay.
So aware of that fact that it is a very expensive venture to clean up after pollution, every company is very conscious and determined to ensure that they clean up the environment, that they protect the environment against possible sources of pollution. Okay. So, and agriculture ranks high in this country. You don't want these resources to pollute the soil, because then soil is rendered unusable as a result of pollution. And so they have plans in place to ensure that whichever areas we work in and the surrounding environments are adequately protected.
That is very well. It gives hope to the Albertine region and the neighborhood that
Yes.
you are replacing what you are actually using.
Exactly.
Which is great. Give us your highlights of this discussion and we conclude.
Yes, I think it's important for the viewers out there to appreciate that the oil and gas industry is a blessing to Uganda. Why? For countries that have utilized the resources that have come out of this industry, have developed. And it's our desire and determination to ensure that this can be a spur to take us to another level in terms of how our economy currently stands. We borrow a lot of money from foreign banks, from bilateral partners, and by offsetting the current debt that we have as a country, and having all the resources to develop the critical aspects of our society like schools, hospitals, the road infrastructure is very important for us. So we are going into this and supporting, ensuring that this resource is developed well, so that the resources that come out of it contribute to the economic development of the country.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Charles,
You're
for giving us your time.
You're most welcome.
And there goes how we can actually conserve, manage, and restore what we're using if we are to take use of the oil projects that are ongoing. My name is Rita Cabiner. Do not forget to subscribe onto this channel, comment on this video, like, share, and comment. Till next time, bye for now.